What's happening? What's happening? Hope you guys are doing well on this Thursday. It's 7:13 here at the Firehouse Eastern. Trying to think about what I want to talk about today. You guys got any topics that you want to talk about? Holler at me. We're posting the workouts that we're doing on the Patreon app on Fridays or Saturdays. 4 times a week, 3 times a week. Weight loss and over 50 workouts are posted there. And then on Train Heroic, we have conjugate and we have tactical. The tactical workouts are the ones that we do with the firehouses here, verbatim. And we try to put alternative movements in there in case that you may not have some of the equipment, but some pieces that I feel for most people are non-negotiables. Most people need glute ham raise. Most people need a pellet squat. Most people need some form of bands and chains. I don't watch it. I used to watch UFC back in the day in pride fighting, 20 years ago. I don't watch a lot of the new guys anymore. Back in the day, Mark Kerr was my favorite, I think. I also like, I'm trying to remember his name. He's got a little bit of a following on Instagram now. But yeah, I don't watch a ton of it anymore. It kind of just, I think it was cooler when it was more underground. Of course, I'm happy that the guys are popular now and making more money for the amount of time, effort, energy they have to put into training that. It's awesome. I used to love watching the Gracies. I liked Ken Shamrock. I thought was pretty cool. Back in the day, I used to watch it a lot when it was more underground. I don't watch it as much today. I used to like Rampage Jackson. Obviously, he was cool. So yeah, I watched it a little bit, but not a ton. I thought it was kind of interesting when they would pair people together that were different disciplines. Like you had kickboxers against jiu-jitsu artists. You had grapplers. You had guys like that. I thought it was more interesting to see which styles worked better. And now everybody kind of just blends everything together, which I think is more of a Bruce Lee understanding of kind of Jeet Kune Do. But yeah, I don't think it's as fun to watch anymore. The disciplines are so blended now. I don't know if it's much more fun. I like Chuck. I like Chuck Liddell too. He was good. For some reason, I just didn't like the Mohawk thing, but in my opinion, I think Mark Kerr was the smashing machine. I thought he just had it all. You know what I mean? What's going on, Mujaba? But yeah, I thought Chuck Liddell was pretty good too. It's weird watching them on interviews now and seeing how old they are. So it depends on the distance I do today. I got started a little bit early today. The traffic wasn't too bad coming up here. So I'll probably be on here for about, 45 minutes or so. I like to maintain a pace that I can talk, but I'm having to work a little bit since we just trained really hard. Tuesday and Wednesday, it's kind of a restoration recovery thing. So just kind of flushing my knees and my hips and my back and my glutes out from the harder workout on Tuesday. Muchaba, if you got a diet for weight loss that you want to follow, we have a nutrition weight loss manual on the website at wenningstrength.com. I don't really do any fighting training. When I was younger, we had a pretty good PAL club. We used to box, and I had a friend named David Bond that won a ton of Golden Gloves, that I used to be a sparring partner from probably about the age of, I want to say 14 to 16. So I can box okay, but we did a little bit of grappling. There was a kid on the college powerlifting team at Ball State that was a pretty good wrestler just when all that stuff was kind of starting. And I used to go and roll with him a little bit, but he would teach me some small armbar tricks and things like that, but I don't practice it enough to be any good at it. Brachialis pull, that's interesting. You know, actually mine's my left arm's a little pulled right now. Those are suck, because when you get a brachialis muscle in your arm pulled, it seems to limit a lot of what you can do. The best thing that I found for it is what we do at the gym called gua sha. Hot cold contrast works okay, but you know, overstretching it actually, in my opinion, extends the time it takes to heal. So you want to be careful doing too much with it. Sometimes you just got to be patient with things like that. I know it's been about 2 years ago now, I thought I tweaked my left knee pretty bad. I just woke up and it was kind of pissed and didn't want to bend correctly. And I was thinking, oh man, here it goes, you know. And I was patient with it. And I still worked out around it, and it healed. It took about a month, and it healed. That was the first time I'd actually had a small bruise or a ding, or you know, a small injury. And I just woke up that way. It wasn't like I felt it when I was training or something else. You know, other things that I had done, small pulls or whatever, I knew exactly when I did it. So, interestingly enough, you just have to be patient with some of those things. What's up, Henry? Oh yeah, thanks, man, no problem. Actually, you know, I don't mind doing the videos. I wish they were a lot more visible to the general population, and I wish that channel would take off. It seems like I've been grinding for, you know, 7-8 years for so long. And I don't play the YouTube game, meaning like I don't study how to do thumbnails and, you know, the intros and outros and shit like that. To me, it's like people should want to get on there for the information instead of, you know, kind of what it's turned into, which is just kind of like trying to figure out algorithms and doing stuff like that. To me, it's just not my cup of tea. But I actually like putting out the videos. I wish they were a little bit more beneficial for the business, as far as, you know, people think, oh, I'm going to make money being monetized on YouTube or whatever. And you can, but it's just about as easy to win the lottery. And the problem that you find too is, Henry, is that the average population is so stupid. I mean, like, you got guys like Liver King and things like that, where you're just like, nobody could understand that dude wasn't legit. Like, I actually watched his, how many of you guys have watched that new Netflix series about him? And I thought it was interesting because, you know, he started off not really being anybody, blew up within a couple of years, kind of promoting a ancestral lifestyle, which no matter how much drugs you take, you're gonna have to eat pretty damn clean to look like that. Plus, he's naturally a smaller guy and leaner. I don't ever remember seeing pictures of him being overweight or having to lean down, but he's not really that strong. And that's the problem with a lot of people is, you know, I think the drugs that you have to use to get insanely lean are far worse for you than the drugs you have to use to get strong. And a lot of people don't know the difference, but I find that diuretics and things of that nature tend to have way more side effects. And so, interestingly enough, I don't know how old Brian Johnson is, but I'm sure that he's got significant health parameter complications in his blood work just from how long he's taking shit, right? Hey, I'm just a lifter, still do my cardio. Yeah, that's why I actually do these lives, Justin Saylor. It just makes the time go by so much faster. I mean, I've already been on here talking for 12 minutes, and like it feels like I've only been on here for like 30 seconds. So even if you don't have a big YouTube following or whatever, just go on Instagram Live while you're walking, and it'll go a lot faster. Europe, the Last Battle. Europa. Okay. Is that on Prime or Netflix? This is the type of, yeah, probably. Yeah, I have a sauna at the house. I don't use it in the summer months because when I go out and work on my lawn, which my property is pretty big, it's a solid 2-3 hours out in 90, 95 plus degree heat, working on the grass and trimming and stuff like that. So I tend to like to use the sauna in the winter time, just because I don't sweat as much. We don't keep the gym hot, so it's pretty cold in the winter. I mean, like 60. We don't sweat a lot in the winter. And it's also why I build a lot of the strength blocks in the winter time too. I think holding on to a certain amount of water weight when you're trying to strain really hard is super important. So we tend to like to do competitions at the gym for the guys at the gym, or our maxes we tend to do in the spring or the winter. And we try to do more conditioning type stuff in the summertime. I think that maximal strain under dehydration is a great way to get injured. You get 50 subs. Here. Vicky, I have. You be able to go. Oh, I don't know if there's a limit on how many subs you have to go live. I don't know. I've been doing it for so long. I don't know what the limit is on that. But I think you can go live on Instagram without having a limitation of how many people follow you or whatever. I'm pretty sure. Not a big fan of tractor tire flips, to be honest with you. In my opinion, when you look at most people's mechanics, when they do the flipping, like their body positioning, they tend to be a little bit rounded in the back, and they tend to lead with the bicep. We've actually seen a couple of guys go off program here at the firehouses and do tire flips and injure their bicep enough to need surgery. We had one guy here that they were out flipping tires and tore up his arm enough to need surgery. So I'm not a huge fan of those. I think you're better off doing things like sled dragging, assault bike sprints, things that are low mileage. I'll tell you what really changes your mindset on some of those particular modalities is a lot of the guys that I train up here, they might get hired in their early, mid-20s, and they have to be in this job for 25 years. That changes your mindset. I think if powerlifters had the same mindset, strongman had the same mindset of whatever exercises I do, I need to be able to do for 25 years, it may help reduce the injuries and the mileage. I've been lifting for, that'll be about 33 years. Very small injuries, small setbacks, but never had anything major happen. Now, a lot of that I think comes back to proper exercise selection, which is why it's so frustrating. You want to get people to follow your workouts, is because you realize you have the best intentions for them as far as, being elite lifter has a marginal shelf life. If you want to be the best in the world, you're looking at the ages of between 22 and maybe 35 if you're smart. And what do you do with the rest of that? Do you leave at, say, 38, 36? or guys like Larry Wheels or whatever leave at 26, 27. And then what do you have left? And if you have a bunch of injuries and a bunch of surgeries and a bunch of limitations, to me, your program was shit. Because the problem with it is that as much as we feel our working out should give us some type of a status, the status only lasts so long. You know, it's like in another, I mean, he built up a massive following, but let's just use Larry Wheels for an example. In my opinion, another 3 to 5 years, nobody will remember Larry Wheels. And it sucks because the guy's a freak, he's an animal, but he retired so young and left so much on the table from training kind of stupid that it's kind of sad, really, you know. And even guys that last a long time, it comes back down to that same point. Even if you can be really good for a decade or longer, you still, time has a way of letting you realize that, you know, what you're doing in the grand scheme of things is marginal in importance. So the point being is you want to train insanely smart and get stronger and get bigger and achieve whatever goal it is you want to achieve, get leaner. But if you're paying a price for it later, especially on my end of the ball, because I'm educated in skeletal muscular, you know, area, biomechanics, kinesiology. If you're paying for those things and joint problems or muscle tears or arthritis, there's no point. And so I try to get people to understand, like, think about a 25-year process and how long you have to last. And that's really what the advantage has been to working with, like, firemen that I work with. Because when I was working with special operations guys, they might get up to, you know, say Ranger Regiment or Navy SEAL or Green Beret, any of those special operations. They're only there for maybe 2 to 4 years on average, and then they're out, or they turn into an officer or whatever, and that physicality is gone. So utilizing things like what David Goggins talks about, you know, which is kind of ridiculous because that dude's injured every week. Those things are just they're not acceptable ways to train for long-term mindset. You have to have things that create consistency. And that's the biggest problem I think we see in the fitness industry, is it attacks the 16 to 22-year-old, and it attacks them hard because it realizes that most people don't look at lifting or strength training or even health as far as fitness is concerned for very long, right? The average American is going to be, you know, I think what was the statistic I saw is that 4% of Americans work out twice a week. So think about that, only 4% of the population works out twice a week. So my biggest pet peeve is when influencers or other people promote intensity. We should be promoting consistency. But the problem is consistency for most people is not flashy and it's boring. But in reality, that's where the real magic happens, is are you able to do stuff consistently for decades on end? Because those people tend to be healthier, stronger, less injured, et cetera, versus like, oh yeah, it's really cool to see somebody squat 8 or 9 or 100 or 1,000 pounds, but it's not cool 2 or 3 years after that, and then they're beat up, they got knee injuries, they can't walk, you know. I mean, you got all these different factors, and I think that what we find is that the average population does not hold in high regard people that have achieved high level of whatever that may be without the damaging effects of training like an asshole. And that's the biggest problem that I see we have. But if you try to show people how to train smart, you know, then you're already at a deficit because there's so much misinformation out there. And that's why I feel we have to have some kind of a line, some kind of a drawing point where it says, you know, this person's an expert, this person's not. I think if we look at people like, we can go back to Liver King for an example. What's his degree? Does he even have a bachelor's degree in exercise science? I don't know. Does he have a master's degree? Does he have a doctoral degree? You know, again, I talked about this on a live a couple of days ago on Instagram, and it's having 3 pillars. So I think you have to have 3 pillars in order to be considered an expert for other people to want to listen. And not one of the 3 is more important than the other, but combined it makes you what I feel is an expert. 1, education level. It's not everything, but it definitely means a lot if you're willing to reinvest in yourself and learn a broader spectrum of your education. That's huge, right? 2, strength level. If we're talking strength sports, how strong are you? Because we got a lot of people out there that want to talk about deadlift mechanics or squatting mechanics or bench pressing form, and they really haven't done anything. And that's a problem, because when you're weak, everything works, right? When you get super strong, you start realizing that there's certain techniques that are not very good. You know, I see some people, for the bench press, for an example, talk about technical capacity or how you're supposed to do it. And trust me when I tell you, if they had 600 pounds in their hands, all of that would be out the window because it's wrong. But at 275, 315, your body will let you for a time get away with those things. So again, strength is, it can't lie, right? Then not only are you strong, then the 3rd pillar and the final pillar is, when you got strong, how long were you able to stay strong? Because longevity is a huge component to understanding, because what you start to realize after about year 8, 10 plus is that the same methods that got you where you're at are not going to keep you there. The mentality or the mindset might actually be more damaging than good, and you have to change. And by change, you have to learn. So you have to start opening books. You have to start traveling and learning from people that are better than you, or maybe older than you, that have done it longer than you, to find those stepping points on how do you maintain that or progress when, let's say, your peak point is gone. And you have to start getting outsmarting the weights and outsmarting the strength. And that becomes a never-ending task, right? You have to learn what optimal is. You have to learn what traction is. You have to learn what muscle imbalances that you have. All those factors play a key role in how hard you can train and how long you can train. And so I find that those 3 major pillars are the backbone to how you learn how to work out. So again, if you're not have made it to at least year 10 or year 20, I don't know how much you can know, because I didn't feel like I really had a grasp on how to work out hard and do it right until I was about 34. So I'd already been training for 21 years. I started at 12. So if I had to put 21 years in to have a clue on how to train, and then had to get a master's degree at that time to do that, well then what is a person that has no degree, no real strength accolades per se, and no longevity, what can they know? And the answer is not much. And that's why when you see people do dangerous exercises that I feel the juice isn't worth the squeeze, you realize that they don't have that information, because if they did, they wouldn't be doing those exercises. But the problem is that the drive now is views. You know, if I do something really crazy, really difficult, or really goofy looking, that everybody wants to come watch. And I have friends that do the same shit. And we have talks behind the scenes, and they do it because of views. And it kind of sucks, really, that the average person would rather see something goofy than something, I wouldn't say perfect, but something that's a little bit more educated. Who's getting the damn boats, helping me work out when I don't feel it. Yeah, I mean, there's a good, David Goggins has a good background on motivation, but the exercises and things that he selects are very, very bad. Again, he has too many injuries, in my opinion, to be considered an expert, because there's probably a way that he could be just that fit, selecting better modalities for his body to not get banged up. And that's what I'm getting at on that, you know. So, yeah, trying to combine powerlifting and strongman, that's a hard combination, because both of those can be good and bad. There's a lot of things that traditional powerlifters do that can make you stronger, but not necessarily good for mileage. And there's a lot of things that strongman do that have big issues as well. So I find that trying to mimic sports that we might be interested in but have a high degree of risk, we have to be careful on which exercises we select out of that. So it seems like the only way I can get stronger is by taking a very long time to do it. Yeah, I mean, that's everybody, Henry. Yep, ACL surgery the 25th, yep. So taking a very long time to do it and try to go too hard, I just get injured. Yeah, that's pretty common. And that's something, again, that guys like David Goggins and people like that have not learned, is that there's a tissue tolerance. And tissue tolerance usually is due to lack of time. They push too hard, too fast. They think, you know, my mentality is I have to push harder than my body wants to get better. And in some cases that's true. But in a lot of cases, it's telling you to shut down, not because the muscle can't do it, but because the passive tissue isn't ready to do it. And again, you know, building yourself up as some kind of a champion with, you know, dozens of injuries is not really a great idea. I think long term, what you're telling people to do is you're telling them to get hurt. And so you have to be careful with that, right? It's funny because people like, oh, Matt, you know, your online coaching is too expensive or your equipment's too expensive. Go and see how much it costs to get a back surgery with no insurance, and then tell me how expensive that is. Again, you're better to train smart and invest in what you're doing than training stupid and then creating a bunch of injuries, because out-of-pocket costs for surgery is going to be a lot more than doing it right the first time. So we have to be careful with that. So that was a good talk. So I've already been on here almost, 30 minutes to the T now, and seems like it's only been like 5 minutes just from talking. Yeah, you'll get guys like Alexi on here just talking shit. They just want to rise out of somebody. The cool thing is when I save this video, all of these comments go away, and I didn't know that at first, so it doesn't really matter to me. Yeah, I don't know how being as lean as I am at 46 at 240 is a fat boy, but whatever. But yeah, so if you guys can, like I said, hop on winningstrength.com and check out the website, check out what the stuff we have to offer. We have over 100 years experience in the online coaching. The tactical train heroic is what I'm going to do with the guys today. The conjugate is a hybrid model of what we do at the gym. And the top tier Patreon workouts, the 4 times a week workouts, are exactly what we do at the gym, minus stuff like this, you know, slight cardio. As a lifter, I try to do as much cardiovascular training as I can without affecting my strength training. That becomes a very hard balance. Yeah, torn adductor, that's a tough one. Torn adductors are brutal. Usually, I have seen torn adductors from people that don't properly warm up. That's a lot of the reason, not necessarily that particular muscle group, but we'll put that into that family of why I developed the warm up. Is usually when you raise temperature in a specific manner for the, say, squatting and deadlifting, and the muscles that activate, you turn them on, potentiate them when you warm up, tend to reduce that by a shitload. So I find that most people that tear things, they're just not physically prepared to do the lifting at the time, either mobility wise, temperature wise, warm up wise, which includes temperature, or they have some type of a faulty motor pattern. At 64, is bench, squat, and deadlift still the best for longevity? It can be. So I have a guy named Al Wu, he's my old boss, he's an old fire chief. He'll be 68 or 69 this year, and we still have him do all 3 lifts, but they're heavily modified. So he still benches with us because his shoulders and elbows and wrists are good. But he believed in a lot of running when he was younger, and he had to have both knees replaced. So we have to be careful with what we do with squats and deadlifts, but he still does them. Now, the question you're asking is, squat, bench, and deadlift's good at 64. They're good under strict professional coaching, which that is the difficult part. Wade Russell, one of my top online coaches on the website, he's 60 and played in the NFL. If he was watching you on online coaching, go through stuff and fixing technical errors and stopping at technical maxes versus competitive maxes, yes, you could use those lifts. But if you're kind of just going through meathead style, then I wouldn't say those lifts are the best for longevity. I am not a firefighter. I've just trained firemen for 20 years. So I've been at this particular department since 2007, so about 18 years. I got this contract initially. What's up, dude? I got this contract initially after working with Ranger Regiment, which was a special operations unit for the Army. I got this contract after I did that. So I'm not a fireman. So slicing and dicing, if you want to know what the warm-up is, like I said, just hop on Patreon, start following the workouts. That'll be a big help. Do you think online coaching is comparable to in-person coaching? No, nothing's comparable to in-person coaching, but it's the next closest thing if you don't live, say, 20 minutes from the gym. So my thought process is, depending on where you're at, you're better off having a pro online coach than a non-pro or average trainer in-person coach, because they're going to see more than, say, going to a gym and hiring a trainer that we don't know what their background is. The basic certifications to be a trainer are terrible, to say the least. And so although someone might have a bunch of certifications, they may not have the base knowledge to make you better. So Jesse, what I would recommend is, like I said, hopping onto our online coaching where we can have a pro look at you virtual. Now, a lot of the guys that we have and girls that we have on online coaching and top tier Patreon will come into the gym on a semi-annual basis for in-person touch-ups. And that's where it really gets better. So I got a family coming from Alabama this weekend that's following the online coaching. And then next weekend, I have a family coming from Chicago, which is one's coming from 10 hours away, the other one's coming from 6 hours away, to get their forms touched in person while they do the online coaching. And I think that's the best. I don't even know what that is. Yeah, so what is it that you don't know what it is, slicing? Chico programs are bad news. They're too high a volume, too much of a higher intensity with the compound movements, not enough accessory movements. They end up causing a lot of damage, long, even moderate term or even short term. And if you have bad technical problems, the volume is just way too high for the classical lifts. So, although most people in their mindset think, oh, well, if I squat, bench, and deadlift, say 3 times a week, I'll get better at those. Well, if your technique's garbage, starting off, it's just going to enhance garbage technique. So, would Chico work with the proper coach standing there telling you when to stop? Maybe. But I would still say you're still fighting that it's too specific too quickly. So, I ran, before I knew what I was doing, I ran a bench press Chico program when I was about 18, and within 5 weeks my shoulders were cooked, like not good cooked. And I remember thinking, like, how on God's green earth can people follow this particular scenario? An interesting story that I heard from the Chico programs is that those were made up, and that's not actually how Chico trained anyone. It was kind of a, let's fuck up some American and westernized lifters. I don't know if that's true or not, but from going through it about 4 to 6 weeks, I could say it definitely fucked me up. Yeah, the app is called Patreon. So if you go on a Patreon app, and then there's Wenning Strength, you can apply there, come to the top tier, and you can see how we do the warm-ups and things like that. What's up, brother? How's it going over in Bloomington, Daniel? So, yep. So Daniel, I'm finally going to get the 70 Charger. I finally found somebody that knows what they're doing with the tuning, so I can get all the little bugs out of it, so I can drive it anywhere. I can really drive it anywhere now. If I step on it, the computer gets confused and goes into limp mode. So, Corey Gregory can be good for certain things. I think his volume's too high, and I think his exercise selection is a little suspect. But yeah, overall, he's not a bad guy, and he's actually kind of local. I think he lives about half an hour from me. But there's not very many guys that are in the field that I would say 100% know what they're doing. Goes back home in 13 days. We're all pretty down over here. For an exchange student, you get attached to people, man, too easy. Say peace, Is that the one from Japan? Yeah, I'm in Ohio. Yeah, I'm in Columbus. I moved to Columbus in 2005. I've been here ever since then. My gym is right downtown. Stronger, me or JL? My total was way higher than JL Holdsworth's total. But JL at his time was really, really strong. Yeah, Youngstown, it's about 2 hours, yep. Yeah, JL was strong back in the day. He was a West Side lifter right before I got there, but we were friends for a little while. So he definitely had the genetics to be a badass for sure. Back to Japan. We're definitely attached. So, well, I think that was pretty good for a live. Hopefully I'll see a couple of you guys on Patreon, maybe online coaching. Talk to you later. Daniel, text me later if you want to. I'll be around. Yeah, you can come down anytime you want, Joe's Christoph. You don't like lung. I don't know what that means, slicing. Oh, I don't. Sure thing. Yep. Peace. You guys be good. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you. If you guys can, go on, like, and comment on some videos. If I can come by this summer with the kids. Yeah. Either that, or I'll try to come over and see you if I can, Daniel. Getting away, having to work every day is difficult, but maybe I can pop over on a Saturday or a Sunday when I get done working. Yeah, I don't know anything about that slicing and dicing. Brownsville, Texas, what's going on? Yeah, man. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. If you can, go comment and like some of the new videos. They got a lot of good information in them. I'd like to try to get the channel blowed up, so if you guys can, help me out with that. Much appreciated. Talk to you guys soon.